He disguised himself as a driver to find his fiancée. What he saw made him cry. Michael Thompson turned off his phone with trembling hands, unable to believe what he had just heard. His fiancée, Jessica, had called off the wedding just 3 weeks before the ceremony, with no convincing explanation beyond a simple, "I can't do this anymore, I'm sorry." After all his failed attempts to talk to her, he disguised himself as a driver. When his friend Ryan, who worked at Prestige Transportation, the company that provided services for the Anderson family, casually mentioned they needed a temporary replacement, Michael saw his chance. The black suit, wine-colored tie and cap were enough to turn the successful businessman into a simple driver. The unshaven beard completed the perfect disguise, so Jessica wouldn't recognize him right away. "I'm not sure this is a good idea, man," Ryan warned, adjusting the cap on his friend's head. "You've already tried calling, texting, sending flowers. If she doesn't want to talk to you, there must be a reason." "I need to understand, Ryan. We were fine, planning our honeymoon, and suddenly she ends everything with a 2-minute phone call. I know something's wrong." Ryan sighed, handing him the keys to the black Cadillac CT6. "You've got 1 week as their family driver. After that, I'm back, and you owe me big time." Michael nodded, determined. It wasn't just love driving him. It was the deep feeling that Jessica was hiding something serious. The note she had left at his building's front desk, along with the engagement ring, simply said, "This is for the best." Best for who? Why? His first day as the Anderson family driver started early. Michael's heart raced when the door of the Beverly Hills mansion opened and Mrs. Patricia, Jessica's mother, appeared. "You must be Ryan's replacement," she said, scrutinizing him from head to toe with a critical gaze. "I hope you're as punctual as he was." "Yes, ma'am," Michael replied, keeping his head down and slightly altering his voice. "My daughter needs to be at the Mayo Clinic by 10 a.m. Don't be late." "Hospital?" Michael's chest tightened. Was Jessica sick? He nodded silently, avoiding questions that might raise suspicion. When Jessica finally appeared, Michael nearly forgot to breathe. She was thinner, with dark circles visible even under careful makeup. The light pink dress that usually highlighted her beauty now looked too loose. He opened the car door without looking directly at her. "Good morning, miss," he said, trying to hide the tremor in his voice. Jessica got in without responding, lost in thought. During the ride, Michael watched in the rearview mirror, every sigh, every distant gaze out the window. Something was deeply wrong. When they arrived at the hospital, he realized this wasn't just a routine checkup. Jessica went straight to the cardiology department and stayed there for nearly 2 hours. Over the following days, the pattern repeated. Medical clinics, labs, more appointments at Mayo. Michael caught fragments of conversations through the rearview mirror, jotted down doctors' names, tried to decipher medical terms she mentioned on the phone. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. On Thursday, something different happened. Instead of the usual clinics, Michael took Jessica to a residential building in the Upper East Side. She went in alone and stayed for over an hour. When she returned, her eyes were red, but there was a faint smile on her lips, the first Michael had seen since he began his disguise. Curiosity consumed him. Who lived there? Was it another man? The possibility made his stomach churn. While waiting in the car, Michael looked up the address online and discovered that it was the home of Dr. Robert Williams. Robert Williams, a renowned cardiologist specializing in rare cases. The next day, as he drove her home after another visit to the specialist, Jessica began crying silently in the back seat. The nearly inaudible sound of her sobs broke Michael's heart. It took all his willpower not to turn around and comfort her, not to reveal his identity and hold her. "Are you all right, miss?" he asked, pretending not to recognize every nuance of that cry. Jessica quickly wiped her tears. "I'm fine, just stop at Bloomingdale's before we go home, please. I need to buy something." At the mall, Michael waited almost an hour until she returned. When Jessica came back, she carried several bags and something else. The sapphire necklace he had given her on their 1-year anniversary, the very one she had returned along with the engagement ring. That detail ignited a spark of hope in Michael's chest. Why would she wear a gift from him if she truly wanted to end everything? On Saturday, an unexpected storm hit New York City when Mrs. Patricia called the company phone, urgently requesting Michael pick up Jessica from Dr. Roberts' house. "She's not feeling well," the woman's voice trembled. "Bring her home immediately, and then go to the emergency pharmacy on Fifth Avenue. The prescription will be with her." Michael drove like never before, his heart racing. When he arrived at the doctor's building, he saw Jessica being supported by Dr. Robert, a middle-aged man with a serious expression. Jessica was pale, barely able to stand. "I've stabilized her blood pressure, but we need the medication as soon as possible," the doctor said, helping her into the car. "The experimental treatment is still her best chance despite the risks." Michael nodded, pretending to understand the situation. As he drove to the pharmacy, he watched Jessica in the rearview mirror, fighting the urge to ask, to reveal himself, to beg her to share the burden. At the pharmacy, while Jessica waited in the car, Michael handed the prescription to the pharmacist. "Is this for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy treatment?" the man asked, adjusting his glasses. "Yes," Michael replied automatically before realizing his mistake. "The recovery odds with this experimental protocol are promising, but it's still a long road. Is the patient responding well?" Michael stammered a vague response and paid for the medication, his mind in turmoil. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Finally, he had a name for what was happening. Back in the car, Jessica was asleep, exhausted. Michael drove in silence to the Anderson mansion, where Mrs. Patricia waited anxiously. At the entrance, "Thank you for being so quick," the woman said, helping her daughter out. "Come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. She has more tests." That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He researched everything about hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a rare condition where the heart muscle thickens abnormally, making it harder to pump blood. In severe cases, it could lead to heart failure or fatal arrhythmias. The condition could worsen suddenly, especially during periods of emotional stress, like a wedding. Everything made sense now. Jessica hadn't left him for lack of love. She was sparing him. On Monday, as he picked up Jessica for another appointment, Michael noticed an envelope fallen on the back seat. "Results. Experimental protocol" was written on the front. He knew he shouldn't, but when Jessica went into the clinic, he couldn't resist and opened the document. What he saw brought tears to his eyes. The report detailed Jessica's condition, classified as severe and progressive. Dr. Roberts' experimental protocol was her best hope, but the success rate was only 60%. Among the possible complications, it listed everything from treatment, failure to the need for a heart transplant. Now he understood everything. She had ended the engagement to spare him the pain of watching her illness, perhaps leaving forever. In the following days, Michael began leaving small signs that he wasn't just any driver. He'd play her favorite radio stations without being asked, leave a small bouquet of daisies, her favorite flowers, on the back seat, and ensure the car's temperature was always perfect. Jessica started noticing these little gestures. One morning, as he drove her to another session of the experimental treatment, she finally broke the silence. "You're not just Ryan's replacement, are you? What are you really doing here?" Michael felt his blood run cold. Had she recognized him? "Just doing my job, miss," he replied, avoiding her eyes in the rearview mirror. "Ryan would never remember I prefer daisies, or that I like listening to James Taylor first thing in the morning." Michael swallowed hard, but kept up the act. That night, he left a note with another bouquet of daisies. "Whatever battle you're fighting, you don't have to fight it alone." The following Thursday, after another visit to Dr. Robert, Jessica seemed different, lighter, almost hopeful. As she got into the car, she smiled at Michael in the rearview mirror, a smile he knew well, one he'd missed all these days. "To Central Park, please," she asked, surprising him. At the park, she insisted he join her for a short walk. Michael hesitated. His disguise might falter in broad daylight, in closer contact. "I insist," she said with a gentle authority. That brooked no refusal. As they strolled along the park paths, Michael kept a respectful distance, his head lowered. Dr. Robert gave me good news today, Jessica remarked, gazing at the lake. The experimental treatment is showing promising early results. My heart is responding. I'm glad to hear that, miss, Michael replied, sincerity seeping into his voice. Do you know what's hardest about this illness? And she continued, pausing to watch the swans. It's not the physical pain or the fear, it's the loneliness. Making decisions that hurt the people we love, thinking we're protecting them. Michael felt his own heart tighten. She was talking about him, about the breakup. Maybe those people would rather have the chance to decide for themselves, he ventured, momentarily forgetting his role as just a driver. Jessica turned to him, studying him intently. You remind me of someone I once knew, she said, stepping closer. Just then, a group of joggers passed by, breaking the moment. Jessica stepped back as if snapping out of a trance. Let's go back to the car. I'm tired. The following week, Jessica's treatment intensified. Michael drove her daily to Dr. Robert's office, sometimes waiting for hours. One afternoon, as he waited, the doctor came out to speak with him. You're the new driver for the Anderson family, correct? The doctor asked. Yes, sir, Michael replied, tense. Jessica told me about the daisies and the notes. She really needs that kind of support right now. Michael nodded, unsure what to say. The treatment is at a critical stage, the doctor continued. The next few weeks will be decisive. She'll be more fragile, more sensitive. Take good care of her during the rides. You can count on me, doctor. When Jessica came out of the appointment, she looked exhausted. On the way home, she fell asleep in the back seat. When they arrived at the mansion, Michael hesitated to wake her. She seemed so fragile, so unlike the vibrant, full-of-life woman he'd once planned to marry. Jessica, he called softly, opening the car door. We're here. She woke up disoriented, looking around. When her eyes met Michael's, something shifted in her expression. Michael, she whispered, still drowsy. The disguise had fallen. There was no more denying it. Michael removed his cap slowly. Yes, it's me, he finally admitted. Jessica's face shifted from confusion to disbelief, then to fury. What are you doing? Disguising yourself, spying on me? Her voice trembled. How long? How long have you been pretending to be someone else? 2 weeks, he confessed. I needed to understand why you ended everything so suddenly. And so you invaded my privacy? Invaded my life? Tears began streaming down her face. So how could you? Because I love you, Jessica, and I knew something was wrong. Now I know about your heart condition, the experimental treatment. You had no right, she interrupted, struggling to step out of the car. I don't want you to see me like this, weak, sick. I don't want your pity. It's not pity, it's love. Michael held her hands. Why didn't you tell me? We could have faced this together. For what? So you could watch me waste away day after day. So you could ruin your life taking care of someone who might not. She didn't finish the sentence, but Michael understood. Jessica feared she wouldn't survive the treatment and wanted to spare him that pain. Never come near me again, she said, pulling away and walking toward the house. I've made my decision. Michael stood frozen, devastated, watching her enter the mansion. Mrs. Thompson appeared at the door, giving him an unreadable look before closing it. His disguise was over, and so was his last hope of winning her back. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now continuing. In the weeks that followed, Michael tried to respect Jessica's decision. He refocused on his business, but couldn't stop thinking about her, worrying about her treatment. He called Dr. Robert a few times, who, bound by professional ethics, refused to share details but gently urged Michael not to give up. Love may not heal physically, but it works miracles for the will to live, the doctor said during their last call. On a rainy day in May, Michael received an unexpected call from Prestige Transportation. Mr. Thompson, we have a specific service request. Miss Jessica Anderson has asked for you to be her driver for an appointment this afternoon. Are you available? Michael could hardly believe it. After a month of silence, Jessica was calling for him. Yes, I'm available, he answered, his heart racing. 3 p.m. at the Anderson residence. When he arrived at the mansion promptly at 3 p.m., it was Mrs. Thompson who greeted him at the door. "My daughter told me everything about your disguise," the woman said sternly. "At first I wanted to sue you and that transportation company, but then," she sighed, her expression softening. "Then I started noticing how she'd glance at the phone, how she'd ask about you in subtle ways, how she smiled when she saw daisies." Michael stayed silent, torn between apprehension and hope. "I don't know if you deserve a second chance," the woman continued, "but I know my daughter is fighting for her life, and I've never seen her as determined as she was when you were around, even in disguise." At that moment, Jessica appeared at the door. She wore a light pink dress, similar to the one she'd worn the first time Michael saw her as her driver, but now it fit better. She seemed to have regained some weight. Her blonde hair flowed loose, and a sapphire necklace adorned her neck. "Good afternoon, Michael," she said formally. "Shall we go?" He nodded, opening the car door for her. For the first few minutes of the drive, the silence was almost palpable. Michael didn't know their destination. Jessica had only instructed him to head to the Upper West Side. "How are you feeling?" he ventured to ask after a few miles. "Better," she replied briefly. "The treatment is working." "I'm so glad to hear that." More silence. Michael was about to ask where they were headed when Jessica finally spoke. "I was furious with you. For weeks, I felt like you violated my privacy, like you deceived me. I know, and I'm sorry, I was desperate. But then," she continued, "I started remembering all the little gestures, the daisies, the songs, how you always knew when I needed. Silence. How you'd look at me in the rearview mirror, not with pity, but with love," Michael finished. "It was always love, Jessica." She nodded slowly. "I ended things because I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want you to see me suffer, to compromise your life because of my illness. And I disguised myself, because I couldn't accept losing you without understanding why, without fighting." Jessica smiled sadly. "We're both stubborn." "Where are we going?" Michael asked, noticing they were approaching the hospital district in the Upper West Side. "To a decisive appointment with Dr. Robert. He'll tell me today if the experimental treatment is enough or if we'll need to consider other options." Michael understood the gravity of the moment. She had called him to be with her during one of the most important moments of her treatment. "Why did you call me today?" "Because I realized I was being selfish by pushing you away," Jessica answered, her voice trembling. "I was making your decisions for you. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just protecting myself from the fear of losing you if things got worse." Michael parked the car at the hospital and turned to face her. "Never make decisions for me again," he said, holding her hands. "If you're sick, I want to be by your side. If you're suffering, I want to suffer with you. If there's a battle, I want to fight it together. It's not a burden, it's a choice. My choice." Tears streamed down Jessica's face. "What if I don't survive the treatment?" "Then we'll cherish every moment we have together," he replied, wiping her tears. "But you will survive. I know your strength." At that moment, Dr. Robert appeared, in the parking lot, waving to them. Jessica took a deep breath. "Shall we find out together?" she asked, reaching for Michael's hand. "Together," he confirmed, gripping it firmly. The appointment lasted nearly 2 hours. Michael stayed by Jessica's side every moment, listening to technical explanations about her heart's condition, the response to the experimental treatment, and the next steps. Dr. Robert showed scans, charts, compared results, and then finally came the news they'd been waiting for. "The treatment is working beyond our expectations," the doctor announced with a genuine smile. "The hypertrophy is gradually receding, and the inflammation markers have dropped significantly. We still have a long road ahead, but I'm cautiously optimistic." Jessica squeezed Michael's hand so tightly he nearly lost feeling in his fingers. Her eyes shone with tears, this time of relief and hope. "Does this mean I won't need a transplant?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "If we continue at this rate of improvement, I believe not," the doctor replied. "But we must stick to the protocol strictly. No stress, controlled diet, medication, at exact times, and the risk of—" Jessica hesitated, unable to say the words. "The risk of sudden complications has decreased considerably," Dr. Robert finished, understanding her worry. I can't promise it will never happen, but the data shows a significant reduction in probability. As they left the office, Jessica and Michael walked silently through the hospital halls. A mix of relief and uncertainty lingered between them. In the parking lot before getting into the car, Jessica suddenly stopped. "Do you still want to marry me?" she asked, her voice small and vulnerable. "Even knowing my condition may never fully heal? That we'll need to live with certain precautions for the rest of our lives?" Michael held her face in his hands, looking straight into her eyes. "I want to marry you today, tomorrow, in any condition. I never stopped wanting to. Even if our plans have to change, even if we can't have that big ceremony we dreamed of, or the honeymoon in the Swiss Alps, or..." He interrupted her with a gentle kiss. "Our plans change. Our love doesn't." That same day, Michael took Jessica to dinner at the restaurant where they'd had their first date 3 years earlier. The cozy spot in Soho was just the same, with its warm yellow lighting and soft American music playing in the background. "Do you remember what we ordered that night?" Jessica asked, smiling as she scanned the menu. "Of course I do. You got shrimp risotto and complained it had onions, even though you'd asked for none," Michael replied, laughing at the memory. "And I was so nervous I spilled wine on my white shirt. And even with a huge red wine stain on your shirt, you still looked like the most handsome man in the world." The waiter approached, and they ordered the exact same dishes from that first night, including the wine, though Jessica could only take a small sip now because of her medication. Over dinner, they reminisced about their 3 years together, laughed over awkward moments, and even talked about the future, one that suddenly seemed possible again. "I want to show you something," Michael said, pulling out his phone. "While I was away these past few days, I started reworking our plans." He showed her photos of a seaside house in Martha's Vineyard, smaller and cozier than the mansion they'd originally planned to build in the Hamptons. "It's quieter, has great hospitals nearby, and the ocean air will be good for your heart," he explained. "We can spend weekends there, little by little, as you get stronger." Jessica studied the pictures, moved. "You really thought of everything." "And the wedding," he continued, hesitating. "I was thinking something small, intimate, just family and close friends. Maybe in your mom's garden? I know you dreamed of that ceremony at St. Patrick's Cathedral, but..." "It's perfect," she interrupted. "Honestly, after all this, I realize I never really wanted that huge ceremony. It was more about social pressure, expectations. What matters is us being together, with the people who truly care about us." After dinner, Michael took her home. Mrs. Patricia was waiting in the living room, eager for news. "The treatment. Here's working, Mum," Jessica announced, hugging the older woman, who immediately burst into tears of relief. "And we've decided to move forward with the engagement." Mrs. Patricia wiped her eyes and surprised them both by hugging Michael too. "Oh, thank you for not giving up on her," she whispered in his ear. "I needed to be sure you loved her no matter what." The following months were about adjustment. Michael restructured his business to free up more time, accompanying Jessica to every appointment and treatment session. Dr. Robert became practically part of the family, even joining them for Sunday dinners occasionally. The wedding was set for December, when Jessica's treatment would be in a more stable phase. It would be an evening ceremony in the garden of the Anderson estate, with just 50 guests. In September, Michael planned a surprise. He took Jessica to Martha's Vineyard to see the house he'd bought, not just as a weekend retreat, but as a wedding gift. "We can't move there permanently yet," he explained as they walked along the beach in front of the house. "You still need to stay close to Dr. Robert. August for at least another year, but later, if we want, we can make this our main home." The house was simple yet elegant, with large windows that let in the sea breeze and a porch that seemed to float above the sand. In the master bedroom, a surprise, Michael had set up a discreet little medical station with all the equipment Jessica might need to monitor her condition. "So we never have to cancel a trip out of worry," he explained, showing her how the system sent data directly to Dr. Robert in New York City. "You've thought of everything," Jessica said, moved. On the porch as they watched the sunset, Michael finally proposed again, this time with a new ring, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, more delicate than the flashy solitaire they'd chosen before. "This stone reminds me of the color of the sea here," he explained, "and it also matches the necklace you never returned." Jessica smiled, touching the sapphire necklace she rarely took off. "It was the only thing I couldn't bring myself to return," she confessed. "On the hardest days of treatment, when everything seemed impossible, I wore it hidden under my clothes. It gave me strength." In November, a month before the wedding, Jessica had a relapse. A severe arrhythmia sent her back to the hospital, where she stayed for 5 days. Michael never left her side, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair, refusing to go home even when Mrs. Patricia insisted. It was during this hospital stay that he truly understood the seriousness of Jessica's condition. He saw firsthand her fragility, her moments of despair, her genuine fear. But he also witnessed her incredible strength, her determination, her refusal to give up. When they were discharged, Dr. Robert warned them, "We need to postpone the wedding. The stress of preparations, the emotions of the day, it's too risky right now." The couple agreed, disappointed but understanding. Health came first. The new date would be set only when Jessica was more stable. A week after the hospital stay, Michael found Jessica crying quietly in her room. "What's wrong, my love?" he asked, worried. "Are you feeling something? Should I call your mother, the doctor?" "No, it's not that," she replied, wiping her tears. "I was just looking at the wedding dress. It feels like our wedding is always slipping through our fingers. First I ended everything, then this relapse." Michael sat beside her on the bed, taking her hands. "You know what I realized when you were in the hospital?" he said. "We're already living our wedding vows. In sickness and in health. Remember? We're going through the in-sickness part even before the ceremony." Jessica smiled through her tears. "That's an optimistic way to look at it." "It's not optimism. It's reality. The wedding is just a formality. Our commitment already exists. It's already real." That night, after Jessica fell asleep, Michael had a serious talk with Mrs. Patricia and Dr. Robert. "I want to surprise Jessica," he explained, "something to bring joy back to her eyes." "Any strong emotion is risky in her condition," the doctor warned. "I understand, but I believe sadness and frustration are just as harmful. She's fighting not just the illness, but also the feeling that life is passing her by, that we're always postponing happiness." After much discussion, the doctor agreed to a carefully planned idea. In the following days, while Jessica rested, at home, strictly following medical advice, Michael, Mrs. Patricia, and a small group of close friends worked secretly on the preparations. On a sunny Saturday in December, exactly 1 month after the relapse, Michael invited Jessica to a family lunch at their Martha's Vineyard house. Dr. Robert approved the short trip, he assured her. He said the sea air would do. "Are you good?" Jessica, who had regained some of her vitality in recent weeks, eagerly agreed. The car ride was smooth, with Michael driving carefully, making frequent stops so she could rest. When they arrived at the beach house, Jessica noticed something different. There were flowers lining the entire path to the entrance. Daisies, her favorites. The front door was decorated with a garland of white flowers. "What's all this?" she asked, confused. "A little surprise," Michael replied with a mysterious smile. When they opened the door, the inside of the house was empty. Michael led Jessica to the back porch, which overlooked the beach. There the real surprise was revealed. On the sand, a small altar had been set up. White chairs formed an aisle. Mrs. Patricia, Dr. Robert, some close family members, and the couple's best friends were waiting, all dressed elegantly yet simply. "Michael." Jessica could barely speak, overcome with emotion. "It's not the wedding we originally planned," he explained. "It's smaller, simpler, more intimate. But it's ours, today, if you want. But we don't have anything prepared. My dress is in New York City. You don't have a suit? We don't have rings?" Michael smiled, calling Jessica's mother. Mrs. Patricia approached, carrying 2 boxes. "Your dress is here," the older woman said, handing over the larger box. "It's not the original one. It's simpler, lighter, perfect for a beachside ceremony. And there's a suit for Michael too. In the smaller box, 2 simple gold rings." "Dr. Robert is here to monitor everything," Michael assured her. At the first sign you're tired or stressed, we stop. No long party, no dancing. Just us exchanging vows, celebrating what we've already lived and what's still to come. Jessica looked at the small gathering of people she loved, at the simple altar adorned with flowers, at the ocean in the background. Her eyes shone with tears of happiness. "It's perfect," she whispered. "Better than anything we could have planned." The ceremony was brief and moving. Jessica wore a simple white silk dress with a sapphire necklace as her only accessory. Michael, in a light suit, seemed unable to take his eyes off her for even a second. The vows they exchanged were written by themselves, reflecting everything they'd lived through in recent months. They spoke not just of eternal love, but of overcoming challenges, of standing by each other in life's battles, of never making big decisions alone. "I promise to be by your side at every appointment, every test, every moment of fear," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I also promise to be there for every victory, every treatment anniversary, every new dawn. I promise. Never to push you away thinking I'm protecting you," Jessica replied through tears. "I promise to share my fears and hopes, my pains and joys. I promise to fight with all my strength for us to have a long life together." At the end of the ceremony, as they were declared husband and wife, the sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and orange, as if nature itself was celebrating their union. The small dinner that followed was served on the house's porch, with everyone seated at one long table. There was no loud music or dancing, just lively conversation and a few photos to capture the moment. Dr. Robert kept a watchful eye on Jessica throughout the celebration, discreetly checking her vitals a few times. To his relief and surprise, she was doing wonderfully, better than he'd expected. There was a glow in her eyes and energy in her expression that no medicine could provide. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. When the guests left around 9 in the evening, Michael and Jessica found themselves alone on the balcony, gazing at the stars. He wrapped a protective arm around her, while gently caressing her face with his free hand. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Thompson?" he asked, smiling as he used her new last name. "Happy, at peace, like I haven't felt in a long time," Jessica replied, nestling closer to him. "Thank you for this, for understanding exactly what I needed." A small ceremony, with the people who truly matter, no pressure or stress. Not just that. Thank you for understanding that I needed this moment now, not in some uncertain future when I might be fully recovered. I needed to celebrate life today, not postpone happiness. They stayed there, whispering softly, making realistic plans for the future. A short honeymoon in Martha's Vineyard, returning to New York City to continue treatment. Maybe next year a slightly longer trip depending on Jessica's health. The next morning, as they had coffee on the balcony, they were surprised by Dr. Robert's arrival. The doctor carried a folder in his hand and an enigmatic expression. "I thought you'd already gone back to New York City, Doctor," Jessica remarked, offering him a cup of coffee. "I needed to speak with you both first," he replied, accepting the coffee. "With all the wedding excitement yesterday, I didn't get the chance to give you my gift." He opened the folder and pulled out some papers, handing them to Jessica. They were test results, the most recent ones she'd done the week before. "I don't understand all of this," she said, scanning the numbers and charts. "Let me explain," the doctor offered, sitting with them. "The experimental protocol we've been following is showing extraordinary results in your specific case. Cardiac hypertrophy has decreased by about 30% since treatment began. Inflammatory markers are nearly normal. Your heart function has improved significantly." Michael and Jessica exchanged hopeful glances. "What exactly does this mean?" Michael asked, holding his wife's hand. "It means we're on the right track," the doctor replied, careful not to create false hope. "We still have a long treatment ahead, but I can cautiously say your chances of a long, relatively normal life have increased considerably. We'll need constant monitoring, medication adjustments, ongoing care, but—" He smiled, genuinely happy. For his patients. "If we keep this pace, you might take that honeymoon in the Swiss Alps next year, maybe not skiing, but enjoying the scenery." You could gradually return to work, as long as you take it easy. And in the not-too-distant future, you might even consider motherhood if that's what you both want. Jessica covered her mouth with her hands, unable to hold back tears. Michael hugged her, equally moved. "It's the best wedding gift we could have received," she said when she finally found her voice. "I agree," the doctor smiled, "but I still brought something tangible too." He pulled an elegant envelope from his folder and handed it to the couple. Inside were open-date plane tickets to Paris for the following year. "For when you're ready," he explained. "My wife and I have a small apartment in Greenwich Village. It's yours to use whenever you can take this trip." After the doctor left, Michael and Jessica spent the day at the beach, talking about the future with fresh perspective. It was no longer an uncertain future ruled by fear and illness, but a horizon of possibilities, even with limitations and care. "When you disguised yourself as a driver," Jessica mused as they walked along the sand, "I never imagined that crazy stunt would bring us here." "It was an act of desperation," Michael admitted, "but I'd do it all again." "What impressed you the most? Seeing all that as a driver, not as my fiancé?" Michael thought for a moment. "Seeing how strong you are, how you faced every appointment, every test, every piece of difficult news with such dignity. How you worried more about others than yourself, ending our engagement to spare me. That broke my heart, but it also made me admire you even more." They arrived at a small cove where the sea formed natural pools among the rocks. They sat there, watching the tiny fish swimming in the crystal-clear water. "Do you know what I saw in you when I discovered your disguise?" Jessica asked. "I saw a love that goes beyond conventions, beyond pride. A man who would humble himself, take on another role just to be near me. Was it invasive? Yes. Was it desperate? No doubt. But it was also the purest proof of how much you truly care." That night, as Jessica slept peacefully, Michael stayed, awake for a while watching his wife. The gentle rise and fall of her chest, the serene expression on her face. He thought about everything they had been through, the road still ahead. It would be a journey with challenges, no question. There would be hard days, tense appointments, maybe even new hospital stays. But there would also be moments like this, of peace, of simple joy, of deep connection. And it would be worth every second. The next day, before returning to New York City, Michael took Jessica to the center of Martha's Vineyard. In a small craft shop, they bought a handmade journal with a leather cover and recycled paper pages. "What's this for?" Jessica asked, curious. "To write our story," he replied. "Every appointment, every improvement, every special moment like yesterday. One day, maybe we can share it with others going through similar situations." The idea delighted Jessica. That same afternoon, already back in the car on the way to New York City, she began writing on the first page. This is the story of how a man disguised himself as a driver to find his fiancée, and what he saw made him cry. In the weeks and months that followed, the couple established a new routine. Appointments with Dr. Robert continued, now less frequent. The experimental treatment still showed positive results, though with some inevitable ups and downs. Michael reorganized his company to work partly from home, spending more time with Jessica. She, in turn, slowly returned to her work as an architect, starting with small projects she could handle without too much stress. Once a month, without fail, they spent a weekend in Martha's Vineyard, escaping the bustle of New York City and enjoying the tranquility of the sea. These little getaways became essential for their well-being. For Jessica, they were moments of physical and mental renewal. For Michael, the chance to see his wife more relaxed and happy. The journal they had bought gradually filled up. Jessica documented not just medical progress, but also the small daily victories. The first time she climbed a flight of stairs without struggling for breath. The day Dr. Robert reduced one of her medications. The morning she swam in the ocean for 15 minutes without stopping. Michael also wrote in the journal, recording his perspectives, his fears, his hopes. On one particularly moving page, he described the moment when Jessica, after an especially positive appointment, turned to him in the car and said, "I'm ready to think about Paris." 6 months after the wedding, the big day arrived. With Dr. Robert's enthusiastic approval, they used the tickets he had given them as a gift. The trip was carefully planned, with stops for rest, extra medication in their luggage, and contacts for cardiologists in Paris just in case. The week they spent in the City of Light was magical. They walked slowly along the banks of the Seine, visited museums with many breaks for rest, and savored French cuisine in small bistros. Michael took photos of every moment, every smile from Jessica, every sunset over the rooftops of Paris. One afternoon, while resting in Dr. Robert's apartment in Greenwich Village, Jessica found a letter addressed to them, carefully placed in the nightstand drawer. It was from the doctor, written in English. Dear Jessica and Michael, if you're reading this letter, it means you've made it to Paris, and that the treatment has progressed well enough to allow this trip. There are no words to express my professional and personal happiness about this. In over 30 years of treating heart conditions, I've learned that medicine has its limits. We can prescribe medications, perform procedures, monitor vital signs, but there's something no doctor can prescribe, and it often makes all the difference. Love. I saw in you both a strength that transcends science. I saw Michael's determination to find you, even if it meant disguising himself as a driver. I saw Jessica's courage in letting go of the man she loved, thinking she was sparing him from suffering. And then I saw the wisdom in both of you, recognizing that the hardest path, facing challenges together, was also the truest one. As a doctor, I can say the experimental treatment is working wonderfully in your case, Jessica. As a friend, I can say the treatment you found in each other is just as powerful. Enjoy Paris. Enjoy every sunrise, every sunset, every moment together. Life is fragile, as you well know, but it's also incredibly resilient when nurtured. By love, warmly, Dr. Robert. The letter deeply moved the couple. That evening, sitting in a cafe near Notre Dame, they silently toasted the doctor who had become a friend, the treatment that was restoring Jessica's health, and most of all, the love that had brought them there. You know what amazes me the most, Jessica said, watching the cathedral's lights, how something that started so wrong, you disguising yourself, spying on me, ended up being exactly what we needed. Desperation makes us do crazy things, Michael replied, smiling. But sometimes those crazy things lead us to the right path. When I saw you in that car driving with your cap and pretending not to know me, I never imagined a year later we'd be here, married, in Paris. And when you ended everything with that phone call, I never could have predicted I'd end up being grateful for it. What do you mean? She asked, surprised. If you hadn't broken up with me, I never would have disguised myself. I never would have seen up close your struggle, your strength. Maybe you never would have told me about the illness, trying to spare me until the last moment. We would have had that grand wedding, and I'd only have found out when you were really sick. We would have lost precious time for treatment. Jessica reflected on her husband's words, recognizing the truth in them. It's strange to think the worst decision I made led us to the best possible outcome. On their last night in Paris, staying in a small hotel with a view of the Eiffel Tower, Michael surprised Jessica with a gift, a delicate white gold bracelet with small charms. Each charm represents a month since we started treatment, he explained, and there's room to add many more in the years to come. Jessica examined each tiny charm, a heart for the first month of treatment, a key symbolizing the moment he discovered the truth, a daisy, her favorite flower, a miniature driver's cap recalling the disguise, a wedding band for their marriage, a plane for their trip to Paris. It's perfect, she whispered, moved. A way to remember this journey we're on. Back in the United States, life went on. Jessica's treatment continued to progress positively, though there were still difficult days. Their weekends in Martha's Vineyard became a sacred tradition. The diary filled with new stories, new milestones, new challenges overcome. A year after the wedding, Dr. Robert shared extraordinary news during a routine checkup. The latest. Tests show improvement that frankly surprised even the international team monitoring the protocol, he explained, showing comparative images of Jessica's heart. The hypertrophy has regressed about 65% since the start of treatment, something we considered practically impossible. The inflammation markers are completely normalized. Jessica and Michael exchanged glances of cautious hope, afraid to let their expectations soar. "What does this mean in practical terms, Doctor?" Michael asked, holding his wife's hand firmly. "It means we can significantly reduce the medication," the doctor replied with a smile. "It means your activity restrictions can be eased. It means that while we still need ongoing monitoring, your condition is closer to controlled chronic than progressively threatening." "And what about—" Jessica hesitated, almost afraid to say the words. "What about our plan to have children someday?" Dr. Roberts smiled gently. "I still recommend waiting another 6 months to solidify these results. But if we maintain this progress, I believe a closely monitored pregnancy could be possible in the near future. We'd have to adjust medications, provide constant monitoring, likely schedule delivery well before term. But yes, it's a real possibility now." That appointment marked a new chapter in the couple's life. The constant fear that had loomed over them since the diagnosis began giving way to cautious but genuine hope. The future, once so uncertain, now opened with possibilities. That same weekend, they went to Martha's Vineyard as usual. On the first evening, sitting on the porch overlooking the ocean, Michael noticed something different in Jessica, a serenity, an inner peace he hadn't seen in a long time. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, stroking her hair. "About how much has changed since that day you showed up disguised as a driver," she replied with a smile. "Back then, I was preparing for a short life, limited by illness. I was resigning myself to never having children, to never growing old with you. I was convincing myself I'd made the right choice by pushing you away." Michael held her tighter. "And now I'm thinking about names for our future baby." She laughed softly. "I'm imagining what our 20th wedding anniversary will be like. I'm planning to plant fruit trees in this house's garden, trees that will take years to grow and bear fruit. I'm allowing myself to think long-term, Michael. And that's the most extraordinary gift life could give me." Later that night, Michael found Jessica writing in the diary they'd started a year earlier. She wrote with intensity, filling page after page. "What are you writing with so much enthusiasm?" he asked, curious. "Our story," she replied without stopping. "From the beginning, from the phone call where I ended everything, to your disguise as a driver, to today. Everything. Dr. Roberts suggested we could share our journey with other patients facing similar situations. I think the time has come." Michael sat beside her, watching the pages fill with his wife's delicate handwriting. He disguised himself as a driver to find his bride. What he saw made him cry. He read the title aloud. "Sounds like the start of a great story." "It's our story," Jessica smiled. "And the best part is, contrary to what I feared, it's far from over." In the weeks that followed, Jessica dedicated herself to organizing the diary entries, turning them into a coherent narrative. Michael contributed his perspectives, sharing how he felt watching her go in and out of doctors' offices, hearing her cry in the backseat of the car, and discovering her heart condition. When the manuscript was ready, they sent a copy to Dr. Robert, who was deeply moved. He suggested publishing it on a blog for heart patients to inspire others facing similar diagnoses. The impact was greater than any of them could have imagined. Within weeks, they began receiving messages from people all across the United States, patients with various heart conditions, family members seeking strength to support their loved ones, doctors impressed by the human perspective of the experience. One message in particular touched them deeply. It was from a 28-year-old woman from Boston, recently diagnosed with the same condition as Jessica. "After receiving the diagnosis, I broke up with my fiancé, thinking I was sparing him. He's devastated and doesn't understand. We read your story together today and we both cried from start to finish. Tomorrow, I'll tell him the whole truth. Thank you for showing me that love can be part of the treatment, not an obstacle, to be removed." That message brought tears to Jessica and Michael's eyes. The idea that their story could change the course of other lives, prevent other couples from going through the same pain, gave even more meaning to everything they had endured. 2 years after their wedding, the news they had been anxiously waiting for finally arrived. After a final round of tests and with Dr. Robert's enthusiastic approval, Jessica was officially cleared to try for a pregnancy. The experimental treatment exceeded all expectations in your case, the doctor explained during the decisive appointment. Your condition has stabilized to the point where we can consider a monitored pregnancy with acceptable risks. Jessica squeezed Michael's hand, barely containing her emotion. There are still risks, the doctor continued, ever cautious. We'll need weekly checkups, constant medication adjustments, and likely a scheduled C-section in the 7th month. But I truly believe you're ready for this if it's what you both want. It's all we've ever wanted, Michael replied, his voice thick with emotion. 3 months later, Jessica rushed into Michael's company, ignoring the surprised secretary, and burst into his office during an important meeting. Sorry for the interruption, she said, unable to suppress her smile, but I need to speak with my husband right now. Michael stood up, concerned, and led her out of the room. What's wrong? Are you feeling something? Do we need to go to the hospital? Jessica simply handed him a small object, a pregnancy test with 2 very clear lines. We did it, she whispered, tears in her eyes. We're pregnant. Michael hugged her carefully, as if she were made of the most delicate crystal. He was overflowing with joy and a reverent fear at the miracle before them. Have you called Dr. Robert yet? He asked when he finally found his voice. I just came from his office, Jessica replied, beaming. He's already scheduled a round of tests and is assembling a team with a high-risk pregnancy specialist. He said we're going to have the most monitored baby in the history of American medicine. Michael cancelled all his meetings that day. He took Jessica to lunch at the same restaurant where they had celebrated their engagement years earlier. There they made plans, dreamed, and allowed themselves, for the first time, to imagine their son or daughter without fear. Jessica's pregnancy was, as promised, rigorously monitored. Weekly checkups, constant tests, delicate medication adjustments. Dr. Robert personally coordinated the medical team overseeing her care, ensuring her heart could handle the changes brought by the pregnancy. In the 5th month, during one of the many ultrasounds, came the revelation, a girl. They decided to name her Emma, symbolizing the new dawn she represented in their lives. By the 30th week of pregnancy, deemed safe by the doctors, they performed the planned cesarean delivery. Emma was born small but healthy, weighing 5.3 pounds with a strong pair of lungs that announced her arrival to the world. Jessica underwent the procedure without cardiac complications, much to the relief of the entire medical team. When they finally placed Emma in her arms, she looked at Michael with an expression of pure joy he would never forget. She's perfect, she whispered, admiring their daughter. And to think I almost gave up on all of this. We almost gave up, Michael corrected, sitting on the edge of the bed. Me, by accepting your breakup without fighting for the truth. You, by thinking you were sparing me by walking away. Thank goodness we're both too stubborn to give up on each other. In the weeks that followed, they adjusted to their new routine with the baby. Mrs. Patricia moved in with them temporarily, helping care for Emma so Jessica could rest properly. Dr. Robert made frequent visits, not just as their physician but as a dear family friend. When Emma turned 3 months old, they organized a small celebration in Martha's Vineyard. They invited only their closest, Mrs. Patricia, Dr. Robert, and his wife Ryan, the real driver who had given up his place to Michael during that fateful week, and a few other friends who had stood by them throughout their journey. During the party, while Emma slept peacefully in her crib, Michael took Jessica for a private walk along the beach. The sunset painted the horizon in shades of orange and pink, reflecting on the calm waters. Did you know it's been exactly 3 years since that phone call when you ended our engagement? He remarked as they walked hand in hand. How could I forget? She replied thoughtfully. The worst and best day of my life. Worst and best. Worst because I thought I was losing you forever. Best because, without knowing it, that was the start of this incredible journey that brought us here. They paused to watch the horizon. Michael pulled a small box from his pocket. Another gift? Jessica asked, smiling. You've been spoiling me too much, "This one is special," he explained, opening the box. Inside was a tiny gold baby-shaped charm to add to the bracelet he had given her in Paris. "To mark the newest chapter in our story," he said, fastening the charm to her bracelet. Jessica admired the new charm alongside the others that already told their journey. The heart, the key, the daisy, the driver's cap, the wedding band, the airplane, and now the baby. "When I look back," she said, emotional, "it still feels surreal that you disguised yourself as a driver for me. It was the most romantic madness anyone's ever done for me." "I'd do it all again," he replied, holding her close. "Every second of that disguise was worth it. Even when I saw you crying in the back seat and my heart shattered into pieces. Even when I thought I was losing you forever." "What stood out most to you from those days as a driver?" Michael thought for a moment. "The image I'll never forget is the day I first saw you leaving Dr. Roberts' office. You got into the car, looked out the window and whispered, 'Please, don't let him suffer.' That's when I realized you hadn't broken up with me for lack of love, but because of too much of it. That's when I knew no matter how long it took, we'd find our way back to each other." Jessica wiped away a stray tear. "And we did. A path far more beautiful than we ever could have imagined." Hand in hand, they returned to the beach house where their daughter slept peacefully and their dearest friends awaited them. The journey that had begun with a devastating phone call and a desperate disguise had turned into a story of love, resilience, and hope that inspired others. And the best part, it was a story that continued to be written each day with every beat of Jessica's strengthened heart, with every smile from Emma, with every moment they shared together. Not just surviving, but truly living. The end of the story. And you, what did you think of this journey of love and resilience? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us, have you ever been in a situation where you had to fight for true love? Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories that touch the soul.